I'm going to kick us off immediately. Why not? Morgane, I have a question here for you, which is for you. Are these design system council members different divisions and disciplines, and how many people? Who decides what problems that get most attention?
Ooh, very interesting question. Yeah, I didn't mention, but actually we changed the people who are part of, I mean, that's the whole goal of having a council, is you can change it. People can rotate in and out. And at the very beginning, it was mostly designers in my team, but then design system started to be used by other division. And so instead of, I think I did mention that brought us political peace, because by nature, the way we constitute the system, the council again, the council is a set of rules that say you have to have time for it, you have to be using it. So by nature, that kind of excludes all the managers. This is how I excluded myself from the system, but just to make sure that real people working, I have to be as dangerous here. So people who actually do work on the system are part of the council, and not just someone very high up who wants to dictate stuff. And we trust
active contributors rather than decision makers.
Okay. And so we trust those professionals to make the best decisions, who will represent their users. And as I said at the beginning, it was people in my team. Then we shared with other division, and then it happened that the other division were not able to pitch in anymore. And then we realized that it was only designers so far. So then we opened the console to developers, might be a thing. Yeah, and so today that's how it is. It's like half designers, so 4 people, half designers, half developers.
Amazing. Jan, have you guys got anything similar, or how is sort of your design system run, or is there a council decentralized, or how does that work?
Yeah, we tried it as well, because company didn't want to invest into a dedicated design system team. And actually having the data helped us to get a team. Some of the data, I'm not sure if I mentioned those specific ones, but yeah, because we weren't just moving fast enough with the design system. So the parity thing, where we started to map all of the components we have, their health, their quality, and slowly how they are also used, was actually done before we had design system team, because we were working with front-end platform team who helped us to scan the code base. And oh, I'm louder now.
Yeah, I think you're on.
Scan the code base, and as I said, with the help of data team, we were able to get some visualizations. But yeah, we had council. We just, for the company, it wasn't fast enough. It would take too long to get where they wanted to get.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So again, we're going to start off with you here, Morgane. So how would you address potential fat finger errors? Oh, done a lot of those myself. Sorry about that. Fat finger errors in financial trade ticket UIs. So obviously you were mentioning earlier that things can go terribly wrong in your field. How do we try to work in for the fat? Did someone see me do something and then ask me if it was about me? Because I feel targeted here, but fat fingers is obviously an issue. How do we try to sort of prevent that, or how can we support that?
I have so many ideas, but for the sake of time, obviously you can prevent it in design using patterns. 4i check is one of the patterns you can prevent. That is obviously when you can stop the process as someone, another pair of eyes to look at it, but sometimes you have to go fast. And when you have to go fast, then that means it has to be in the UI. If it's in the UI, then the temptation is to make it only on the front end side, whereas fat finger should be managed by the back end. Or is that going too far from, is it too far from design system? Anyway, so this is where sometimes when we only work on design system, we need also to keep in mind what's happening in the back end. Because obviously the scale of potential errors, we really need, at least in my company, to really think about those things. This is why we tend to say that we have just UI elements that are completely agnostic to backends, but we actually tend to have also components that are linked to backend systems, so such as like the one we have on training platforms. So yeah, UX plus backend.
UX plus backend.
Yeah.
That's the solution for fat fingers. So this is back to you, Jan. we've got quite a people interested in accessibility in general. Obviously, accessibility is a super important everyday part of things now. Do you have any advice on how to potentially measure and track accessibility for a design system? I guess it's actually both of you, but do you want to start us off, Jan?
I wish I had, but we try to do audits. We try to do like regular audits at Kiwi. We are doing like quarterly checks, and we were just being loud about it, plugging it into presentations, sharing with stakeholders, hoping that someone will like it and give us a mandate for that and will become an executive sponsor for that. At product board, we were actually 2 or maybe 3 of the criteria from the health status were about accessibility. It was about the colors, two of them. One was about the colors, of course, which is usually easier to get right. Not always in practice, but it's definitely easier than in code, where it's a significant investment, especially into refactoring of the product. So that was our strategy. We didn't talk much about accessibility, but we were pushing for adoption and building like our stuff that are accessible. It would never get into 100%, of course, but it would improve us at least at some aspects. At product board, it was a bit easier because with accessibility, it comes also, especially like product board is a productivity software. So people need to be fast when they're using it because they're using it 4 or 5 hours per day. And we didn't have things like arrows working when you search for stuff. So any selection basically meant that you need to click around as the user, which was annoying. So this was actually our way how to sell accessibility into our product. At Kiwi, it was more transactional business because it's where you buy tickets. So we were actually going through conversion, and we were also introducing special components just for accessibility and navigation, and kind of stating, hey, it's an important aspect of what we do. We should be thinking about it when we deliver things.
Okay. Awesome. Have you got any thoughts on how to measure accessibility, or how do you guys work generally with accessibility in your design system?
With design system. Yes, I was going to say it's difficult, right? Both ways. Yeah, I mean, in the design system, at least we'll try not to cause accessibility issues. But I think my biggest battle is for people to understand that it's not because you use a design system without accessibility issues that your products will be accessible. Because obviously, I suppose it's a complex topic and people just see, oh, accessibility work has been done on design system. I'm good. And then I have to go and explain, no, it's, for each product to do the audit and you can still implement things. So I think I ended up saying, it's not because you have a set of Legos that means something that you're going to build something that means something. But it's, I think, a long-term battle of for people to understand what it is and to prioritize it, especially on new features, because they do the audit once, but it's ongoing. So I think it's general awareness that we're trying to promote. But yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, so it's as you say, it's not just because your design system passes accessibility, it doesn't mean that your product automatically will. So and it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic, brilliant. I actually have a question for you, Jan. So you were talking a little bit about, I'm going to kind of call it buy-in. So in some of the previous conversations that we had around design system at DSL, we talked about buy-in for a long time. And I guess all the stuff that you are saying here, they are really, really good tips that we should all take away and think about. But they sort of once you actually start. But what do I do if I'm in the process of, I really want to kick off a design system and I haven't got there yet? And my team really wants it. And I have other people in the organization that kind of wants it. But then you have sort of, there tends to be a level above everyone else who might potentially not understand why should we have it and what will it give us? Both of you actually, what kind of tips can we give those people to say, this is what you need to take back to your senior CEOs, C-level people, and tell them, this is what design system will do for you?
Do you want to start with this one?
No, nobody wants to start.
Just a bit of context, I wasn't hired as a design system person to Kiwi, and I was hired to product board, but there was no plan for a design system team, no buy-in for that. That's a different discussion, how to be a design system person without having anyone in the company. Different discussion, lots of memories there. Maybe one thing I would recommend is not to fight this alone. Try to find someone who actually has some organizational leverage, and find someone who people already listen to, especially if you are a new person. Executives will probably not listen to you because, like, who am I? Honestly, who am I in the organization if there's 300 more people and I just like am the person who has some other idea how to have more work for everyone for some time. So I was trying to find executive champion. That's, I think, the key. Find someone who has some record of successful changes, I believe, in a company, who are able to push at the right places, who are connected with the right people, and to get some buy-in. And if you don't have anyone who is from exec or high enough in the organization, look for partnerships in other teams. And that's what happened at Product Board for us. Front-end platform team, there was a buy-in for front-end platform team. There wasn't a buy-in for design system team. So we just talked together, and I found a champion as an engineering manager of platform team who were actually willing to put a few people from his team onto design system, because the mission was about the stability for front-end platform team, and that was very similar for design system as well. But I think in one sentence, don't find it alone. Try someone who will help you.
Find a partner to be a champion with. Excellent. Have you ever been in the scenario where you sort of have to try to convince people that this is the right thing to do? I know you guys have been going on for 8 years. Remember back when it started?
No, but I mean, somehow it's sad because like when something is okay, then people turn the gaze into something more urgent than the things that are okay. So even if you have a design system now, it's like questions, how do you keep people interested in it? Because then they're going to forget about it, and then you have to justify why we should invest in it. Yeah, finding allies, I think, is the most important. For us, actually, the design system, I mean, back then was a named design system, but started from our dev initiatives because their projects always asked them to do more and more web-based platforms, and they were kind of, I guess, tired of like always re-implementing the PDF brand guidelines. And then they realized that maybe they needed help on the design side, so we partner up, and this is how we kind of invested in the design system. But I have to say, sometimes also I feel like maybe it's not the right time for your company to have a design system. I don't know if it's, I'm going to get some tomatoes here.
Controversial.
Sorry. No, I mean, if there's things super urgent, like let's say, if there's a cybersecurity threat to your company, maybe indeed they better invest in that first before doing design system. And I feel sometimes it's just listening about the cues, like the adaptive color mentioned. It was there for a while, and then there's these opportunities, and then you catch it. And being able to sense what's happening. I mean, I guess just to give you an example, when we pitched the business pattern slides that I shared earlier, it was a very bizarre moment because that was the week where the war started. And even myself, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to talk design system to someone who has to deal with crazy rakes and craze, like a war. We had also a subsidy in Russia. So, it all felt a bit like, oh my God, who am I, So in that moment, maybe that was not the best time to talk about business patterns, but it's like, finding the moment to push for your agenda.
Find the right moment, find the right champion, the right ally.
Yeah.
And maybe do not get discouraged. Like, the good thing about design systems is that they are very wide. It's also a bad thing about design systems, but a good thing is they're wide. So there are many places where you can kind of plug into a company. You mentioned, I think, brand team. I mentioned front-end platform team. We were lucky with a design team before. So there are some chances. Just find the right path. And if the first one doesn't work, just brace yourself and try it again. Maybe you will be lucky. because you need also a bit of luck, to be fair.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm sure we can all agree with that. So let's say that we have now actually managed to get this buy-in. We got design system going. You guys have been working on it for 8 years. How do you go back to the organization and financially sort of get that support continuously? This is for you, Morgane. It's going to be a tough one.
This is recorded. No, I think I can say that. One of the reasons we wanted a council is because we want people to rotate in and out, but also we want people to be able to switch to design system work, which means basically the design team and the dev team supports the design system, but it's nowhere in budget tables, which means you can't defund our design system because it's integrated in the team and it's integrated in the way we work. It's like you can't defund HR. So this is how we ended up having, but again, it doesn't mean that there's no conflict of priorities. At some point, it's just about keeping the explanation of how we're doing things and yeah, like putting the discussion on, you know, cost, time to markets and things like that also help for people just to keep, for that to be still in their minds.
Keep showing those outcomes and the positive
Yes.
that it actually has, the time that you're saving, the cost as you talked about.
Yeah. And hide the design system people in the organization.
Protect. Okay, brilliant, excellent. Any comments on you on that, Jan? How do we keep kind of, I guess, not necessarily validating, but justifying that this team is still existing and that we still need this team?
I was talking about it in my talk and just using the data we collected, finding which type of data resonates with different people in the company is important. This was the focus part. And sometimes you cannot do anything. Sometimes it may happen that it will just get defunded. So it's also all right, I guess. But yeah, like communicate the values, highlight the stories of people who are using the design system, all the things that I mentioned there. Make people who are using the design system to realize that they don't want to work without it anymore, and try them to be loud as much as possible.
Yeah, fair enough, absolutely. So we have the council, we have people adopting it, everyone's loving it, you are very happy. Then all of a sudden people start implementing it and using it badly. Yes. How do we deal with that? What do we do then? Replace them in the council?
What do you mean by using it badly?
So it's actually a question here that we have. So how do you handle situations when you've seen teams badly implement parts of the design system? They're not using it correctly, or they sort of implement it incorrectly or badly. How do we deal with that? So we make sure that the design system sort of don't swear off in a particular direction and just goes off track.
Yeah, that happens every day. We're in a big organization, you know, so I mean, at some point, you know, nothing can be 100% perfect. I think, Jan, you mentioned not 100% accessible, but like using the design system completely in a right way. I mean, I think probably only people in the council, and I would say even people from the council, sometimes I see that design, I'm like, are you even following your design system? I'm not sure. So it's probably, it depends, obviously. Is it for a real need, or is it like because they didn't know, not trained? So what we try to invest a lot in currently is trying to scale up trainings and understandings, such as like training paths for developers, for designers, and try to catch this before things happen, but then things will happen. And I think at this stage, it's more like, especially if you are in a big organization, not taking it personally, it's good for your mental health, but also just thinking that it's like, you know, statistics, there will be in the distribution extremes in the good way and the bad way. So you may just stumble on someone who is at the end of the distribution. I mean, I'm not saying that to projects, obviously, they'll be funded, but that's just how it is. Statistically, it will happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just have to accept that there's reviews to be done and rework to be done because that happened.
Excellent. How have you had scenarios where the team hasn't necessarily used it the way that you would have liked them to?
always, as Morgan said. But I would maybe like switch the question to why are we confident that our solution is the right one? How do we know that them using badly is not just our perception, because they use it differently than we want it? And if we have research for that, perfect. Share the research with them, make the case why what is in the design system is there. If you have research, put it into your documentation. Like if it's not there, they don't have the context you have. They maybe don't even know that they use it differently than you want it. I would like to avoid the word badly as much as possible, because I think that's very relative. And what I learned is that design systems can never account for all the use cases, and especially when new products or new features that we didn't know about when we designed the pattern emerge in the product, the pattern may be not enough anymore.
Yeah, I agree. You got to build in some kind of flexibility from the beginning. You have to understand that this is the system. Nobody touched it in their right way. So I think that's super important to have a flexibility and allow people to actually do an alternative way, because sometimes we end up replacing patterns with something that they do instead.
And it's also about the objectives of the company. What do they want with design system? Is the goal consistency? I don't know if it's a good or bad goal, but it might be goal for someone, consistency. For some companies I have worked with, the goal was speeding up development. And they didn't care about consistency that much. Because why? They wanted to developers and product teams be more efficient with design system. And if they use it badly, but they are still fast, and it works for users, that's an important piece, and it works for users who are using the feature, it's maybe all right. Maybe it's your job then as a design system manager to actually figure it out in design system, how you track those things, so it doesn't break after 3 years of everyone using it badly.
So I think you sort of touched a little bit on an answer of another question that we have here, which is sort of similar. How do we make sure that the design system is flexible enough to accommodate the variety of products? So, you know, how do we manage inevitable deviations and, as we say, inconsistencies? Not necessarily deliberate ones or by mistake, but actually deliberate one because it's actually it's meant for different products. It's supposed to be.
I guess I can start on this one. So I guess, yes, as Jan said, it depends on how you, like the goals of your design system. Is it to cover absolutely everything? Can you absolutely not do anything that is not in the system? For us, because we have so many products, we knew that what we said to project is that on average, the system should provide 90% of your elements, 5% adaptation, 5% creation. We even have, I guess the tendency is like some projects would try to push their own components so we maintain it. So in that case, we try to rethink, okay, is it really something that should be at the system level? And if not, then we had actually a word for that is actually part of one of the Medium article, which is like trying to categorize the different type of requests. And sometimes a component is just a snowflake, which is, it would just exist in one of the product. It will never be at the system level, and that's good enough. That's part of the 5%. So trying to quantify, obviously, is just estimates, and it's not a fixed rules, but for people just to understand that not everything should come from the system either.
I will mention one example from Kiwi. We actually started with supporting one product and one platform only, the web. We ignored iOS, we ignored Android, because we just didn't have the capacity for that, and we were trying to define focus. But soon company decided that they want to build their own product support, customer support tool, because they had like 1,500 agents, customer agents, and just wasn't efficient for the company to actually use something, a third party. And it was also didn't do the job the company wanted. So they started to build a new product, which was completely different. Suddenly it was B2B, or it was internal, but it would be B2B, where the original product was B2C. And we were stressing out about them using things from the product or from the design system in a different way, because they had completely different needs. And we wanted to have consistency in how they display, for example, flights information, but they had great arguments about, hey, we need different information and find information for agents than we need for users. And this was like bulletproof for us, like, okay, I get it. So we started to ease down a bit on how they use the system, and it was more about the speed of delivery for them and using the atomic parts. But we also communicated that the Dazn system is actually optimized for specific product, and if you use it elsewhere, good, use it, and please give us feedback, and we will try to accommodate it for your product as well. But it's more about how you extend the things. So again, we were starting to be more open in APIs, because for the original product we were very, very closed, because we kind of didn't want people to change it, which I believe was a mistake, like retrospectively. I think we evolved, but yeah. And sometimes it's okay to not support all of the products. Maybe it's okay to tell them, use material design because it will work perfectly what you want to do with your product.
Fair enough. Cool. We have time for maybe one more question. There's a couple of here. So actually, this one might be a quick one. I don't know. What's one software program that you would learn or use to help you determine that your design system is working? Is there such a thing as a tool or program for that, to determine that the design system is working?
What does it mean that it's working? Sorry, I'm asking questions more than answers, I guess. But,
that's okay. That's okay. I mean, the answer could also be that you're not familiar with any such tools, but ultimately this is the question. What's one software program, one to rule them all, one software program would you learn or use to help you determine your design system is working?
Notion. No, not Notion or Confluence, anything where you can write document and share it with people.
Yeah, fair enough. Take notes, basically. Note it down.
And use documents to convince people that it's working.
One tool. Evaluations, year-end appraisals. You gotta use the design system.
There you go.
Objectives.
Objectives. That's fair enough. I think we'll go with that one. Do you think that metrics like design system adoption and component usage only become compelling once a design system have actually proven its value? Or is it something that is important or useful before it proves its value? That's another question here.
Can you repeat?
I can indeed. So let me see if I can find it again. Do you think that metrics like design system adoption and component usage only become compelling once the system has proved its value? Or are they important before the value has been seen?
I guess it's always good to have metrics on what you do in general. But it's true that I think when I hear about that, it's mostly for people who maintain it, to know where to invest next or keep the maintenance. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, if you're still in the early phase and you try to get people to use it, maybe you want to invest more on maybe the selling part of design system and the education part, and spending time with people to show them how it works. So yeah, I feel like metrics is really when you start trying to understand what you do next. If you're at the very beginning, again, it's all priorities, right? So yeah, I guess that's probably what I would say. Any views here?
Yeah, I would say the same. I think it becomes a great tool for you for observing how the things work and doesn't work. And also the fact that you have a buy-in right now doesn't mean you will have buy-in in a year. Because people leave companies, people join companies, there can be a new executive, there can be someone who doesn't believe that, you need to convince them again. Your executive champion left the company. Those things happen because people change jobs. So I think it's always better to have some like ammunition to have for argumentations.
Yeah, and I also think that sometimes you can also lose what used to be an ally or champion can also change the mind because something didn't work out the way that you thought it was going to do, and then all of a sudden you're back to not having the ally or champion with you.
Yeah, which is exactly what was on the life cycle, right? We were on the top with the maturity and started degrading to decline slowly.
Excellent. Thank you so much to both of you. Thank you also for your talks, and good luck with both of your systems and continuous work, and I hope I see you again very soon. Cheers for now.